Hello there. Welcome to the Africa Rights Talk podcast, a Center for Human Rights podcast series exploring a range of human rights issues through conversations with academics, practitioners, and activists. I am your host, Victoria Amechi. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Africa Rights Talk podcast. This is the first episode of a new season 7. I thought it was the very best thing to do to celebrate this new season was to celebrate a very important person, a queer icon who unfortunately had passed some 2 weeks back. And I'm here with Thuli, a friend, a colleague, and a mentee of his to discuss the life and legacy of this queer icon, Imam Muhsin Hendricks. And here with me is Thuli Mjwara is a strategic advocacy coordinator at Inclusive and Affirming Ministry, West Cape. She has the vision of addressing religious-based homophobia. She works at the intersections of gender, religion, and human rights by facilitating processes that are community-based. And she has collaborated with civil society partners and coordinating interventions that promote awareness on diversity, embodied leadership, advocacy, and eradicating conversion practices across Africa. Based on these intersections that she does with religion and queer identity, I thought it was the best thing that you spoke about the life and legacy of Imam Muhsin Hendricks. So the first question, let's get right to it. If you have any personal memory of Imam Hendricks that truly captures who he was, not just as a leader, but as a friend, mentor, and a human being.
Thank you for having me, Vicky. Hello to everyone. There's so many. This past weekend, we had a memorial service for the Imam. And one of the things that we wanted to do is do like a candle lighting, as most memorials normally do. And while we were planning, we were laughing at the fact that the Imam, whenever we did interfaith stuff, he never liked, using traditional candles. He was more into those battery operated one, and he would always say, oh no, then people can take them at home and you can use it in your own prayers. And also just candle wax now is a little bit tacky. So, we laughed about that, and I made it my own mission to go and get the candles, the battery operated candles. And also things like, he was quite active on TikTok, so he would always have these trendy videos. But one thing about him was that he would always have his hair done. His hair was one of the best things. Like wherever he turned up, his hair was on point. His outfits were on point. And when we were reminiscing as a collective, we laughed and we were like, you know what? He was actually like the queen of our group, because he would show up, he would make sure that he's, whether it's his cards or the workspace that he's working in, it's warm. It has these neutral colors like light blue and white. Even the masjid was, at the mosque, it was light blue and white. And he took time out to hand design and craft some of the stuff in the decor in the mosque. So he was a gentle person, very compassionate, with a lot of jokes, loved to laugh. So those are some of the memories that I have and that I share with others about him and his spirit.
All right, thank you for that. I don't know him to be, how queer icons are usually, feel very kind of like distant. I didn't know he was that kind of like down to earth and very calm and very kind, and that's very interesting thing to know about the Imam. Thank you for that. He believed deeply in a version of Islam that embraced love, inclusion, and justice. How did his understanding of faith shape the way he lived, and what lessons can we take from this approach to spirituality?
So I think, Vicky, just linking with what you've just shared, often when we don't interact, when we see activists or we see people who are giants in our movement, we sort of admire them from far. Sometimes being scared to approach them, unsure if, you're going to say the right words. And the Imam was one person that even if he just approached to say hi or to admire his scarf, you know, he would be so open to listening to people. And even though he sat on a lot of panels, he wasn't a person who seeked the limelight. So I even noted at ILGA, a conference, he sort of came in, did his part, greeted a few people, and then just slipped out. So yeah, that's another thing about him. But in relation to his understanding of faith, so the Imam, even if once they show, and because I do know the Al Khubar Foundation is looking at maybe later after the mourning period and Ramadan has passed, you know, having conversations about screening the radical. Before his assassination, he'd released a documentary about his walk. One thing about the Imam is that he grew up in Pakistan. His father was an Imam, so he studied the scriptures quite a lot. And he also became an Imam in terms of teaching Islam and leading prayers. And at his later stage of about 26, he realized that, you know, he needs to come out. He can no longer hide his true identity. At that time, he'd already gotten married and had some children. So even that, it was a process, a journey in having to have a conversation with his immediate family and also his other extended family around this, you know, his gender, his sexual orientation. And as we know, as queer people, that navigating family is not always easy. It's painful because there's a lot of reprisal, there's a lot of rejection, and it's even worsened by coming from a family of faith who are leading within those spaces of worship. So it took a lot of strength. It took a lot of prayers and tears and also loss, but having to hold on to love and compassion was really one of those biggest strengths that I see in the Imam. When he was part of those who opened the inner circle and, you know, the mosque that was affirming to all. And one thing about the inner circle was that it wasn't segregated in terms of sex. So in some mosques, you know, men are situated at a certain position and women are also pray from a certain position. But the inner circle allowed for men and women to share the space. So it was quite a breakthrough in having a mosque where even women could lead prayers. And there wasn't a thing of saying this position is only reserved for men. And with the Al Khubar Foundation, you could see that he still carried that element of belief around equality, around everybody accessing prayers and being able to lead prayers and being part of community. We also saw with the Palestine genocide and how within the Cape Town Jewish space, there was a fracture between those who were in support of Palestine and those who were in support of Israel. And there was a group, which is the South African Jewish for Palestine group, and they experienced being outcasted from their own temples and experiencing rejection from their families because of their beliefs. And what the Imam did was he opened up his space. I attended one of the Shabbats where he opened up to that community to come and have their prayers in his mosque. And it was such a beautiful space where even though we are coming from what politically people would see as the opposite sides, but because we're united by passion, by compassion, by love, by humanity, that space became a shared space of healing. So what happened was the Cape Jewish queers, the Cape Jewish space led their prayers and their liturgies, and then the Islam group they also had their segment as well. And it was just such a lovely space of fellowship that spoke to the Imam spirit around, offering a safe space for those who feel rejected, for those who feel excluded because of their beliefs. And he didn't let the thing of saying, no, but you're not part of my faith space. I cannot open my doors to you. So he really, truly lived his scriptures and his beliefs. And it was something that he exercised daily in his life. And you could feel that spirit and that warmth whenever you were around him, that lightheartedness, that fun, he was a really lovely person, and it's such a great loss to not only our activist space, but to those who saw him as a refuge, who saw him as a father, who saw him as a mentor.
Yeah, thank you. I honestly do agree with you too, because I feel like based on what you've said, he has done a lot for the community, and even like making sure spaces are very warm and very, loving. So I agree, and it's such a very big loss. And he talked about how kind of has the strength to carry on this work of trying to reconcile faith and queerness despite all the risk. Looking at how this ended for him, it was so much of a risk trying to make sure that everyone was included in the conversation. And what you think gave him the strength and capacity to foster love in the community despite the risk?
I strongly believe that it was rooted in his faith. It was rooted in his belief in that in that we're all human, and we all just need to navigate life with a bit of compassion and love. The fact that his life was taken as he was going to officiate an interfaith heterosexual wedding speaks volumes in how he believed that, when people are in love and want to be happy, all we need to do is just open up that platform to mediate that to happen. There's a quote from him where he says in The Radical, the heart cannot hold both, fear and fear and love. And he intentionally daily chose love in saying that this is how I'm going to navigate my space. And despite the challenges, often I think now slowly there's a lot of commercialization around mental health and wellness, where people are being encouraged to go on holidays or go to retreats or spas as a form of wellness. And often we don't look at how our spirituality plays a huge role in how we are becoming balanced persons, or how it contributes to our own sense of balance. And often when spiritually we are not rooted in a space where we are embraced either in gratitude, in love, in compassion, sometimes it does affect how we navigate the world and how we see ourselves as well. And how he was so rooted in his religion and in opening up the space, or a safe space, and not only limiting it to those within South Africa, but opening it up to regional and global partners, just goes to show how he was so rooted in this belief around a collective space of being, a collective space of healing, a collective space of sharing, of seeing the other for who they are. One of the things the Imam used to like doing when we have meetings as the Queer Interfaith Collective, he would always encourage that we have an in-person meeting and that we have food. And through this breaking of bread and sharing and eating and laughing, it strengthens our own relationship ties, but it also provides that space where we're able to see each other beyond just having to see Thuli as, the person from I Am, or Vicky from Center for Human Rights who's only doing what they need to do and then they move on to the next task. But that space of breaking bread together and getting to know each other just beyond our work titles brings that connection, rebuilds that connection.
How do you think he wants us to continue that legacy, those teachings and teachings of love and community, and having to choose between fear and love? So how do you think he wants us to do that going forward?
Yeah, no, I still strongly believe that he would want us to continue navigating on those principles, places for those who have feel that they're being excluded, and also just having that space, or having that space of softness, of quietness, of being open to others. And the reason why I say softness is that, I'm an activist who I will come into a space and I will be loud. If I do not agree with a certain speaker or what they say, I will stop that proceeding. I'm a type of person who will be at the front lines when we're marching. I will be with a loud hailer. So I'm one of those activists who really believe around amplification of voices and being in the front line and being loud. And his work and his activism was the more of a softer approach, more of a, sit down, let's talk about this, let me offer you companionship and connection. Let me offer you a soft landing. Let me offer you that space of saying, let's sit down and, you sort of that space of replenishing your energy, of such warmth. And I think for me, I've really been reflecting also around how would that look like in my own activism? How do I also offer that space? I know sometimes from people where a person will say, oh, I've been wanting to approach you, but I'm so scared. You come across at times as being so fierce and unapproachable. And I'm like, actually, I don't know what I exude, but I don't know if it's just the passion or the fierceness, but there's a need for me to become a little bit more softer, to be more accessible to others. And those are the learnings that I'm drawing from Muhsin. In just offering that soft landing for a lot of people, and also for even upcoming activists. I was at the Khayelitsha Queer Film Festival last night, and a majority of the participants or the audience that came through are still like, they're all under 18, like majority was under 18. I think there were probably like 7 of us who are over 30. And to be in that space with young activists who are lesbians, it was predominantly lesbian women, and who are now sitting through and listening to a panel where I'm now talking about, how is the law helping us to get justice, or are we even getting justice in relation to hate crimes? My heart, it kind of sat on my spirit for a bit to think that this group of close to 70, 80 young lesbians are now being taught to be like, in navigating the world, constantly be aware that you can be attacked at any time, constantly be aware that you could be exposed to violence, not because of anything that you have consciously done wrong, but just because you are walking with a partner, or just because of the way you dress, or the way other people have perceived you. And it's such a it really steals away from that queer joy, and it steals away from this balanced life that we all just want to have, to constantly work from that space of fear and the space of reactionary to violence. I think his teachings were just about, let's open the doors, let's bring people in, let's have let's rebuild these connections, some that were severed during COVID and some that were broken as people grow up and move out and move on to different platforms. But people must always know that there's a safe landing that is available to them whenever they reach out. So those are some of the teachings that I'm reflecting on, that I'm being intentional on opening myself up and softening myself up a little bit more, and just being that space for others.
Great. That's a very good takeaway from his life, trying to be more softer. It's so much to do. We're not really concerned with basically the approach or how we look doing it. I feel like it's important also to create that safe space and for that soft landing. People can come to you, even though what you're doing is important. They can see the work, but also that's kind of like warm space also is necessary to give a direct hack. So I agree with the soft landing approach.
As we work, and sometimes we find as we navigate certain spaces, you come into a space and there are people who've been there, who've been working in that space for years, and you don't know how to approach, and you want to do the work and you want to learn. And sometimes, we also get caught up in saying, we need to get this agenda done. We need to push for this law. We need to document challenges that have been faced. We need to get the data. And we don't really have those spaces of where we just sit and we share and we open it up to everyone. Often we reserve those spaces for only our colleagues or, our loved ones. And we don't actually recognize, or we're not actually consciously aware how that is the space where meaning making happens, because then we're all processing together, we're all talking together. Often at conferences, I like hanging out with the smokers. I'm not an avid smoker or a smoker, but when you go to the smoking corners, that's where the conversations are. That's where people are reflecting, and that's where they have that call to action. And they've processed whatever discussions were happening, they've sort of strategized, they've sort of, and then they come back into the space already having, sort of made sense of certain things and of what they've heard and what they're thinking. And they've also been able to let off steam on how they've interpreted certain things. So I think we need more of those spaces. Sometimes the conference will say, oh, we have a wellness space, but then it's just a room with yoga mats and cushions. And I do understand we get jet lagged and we want to rest, but it mustn't also look like, like a psychiatric space, like it's so clean. It's, and there isn't, it doesn't reflect a warmth and a sense of, to draw people into like a dynamic space of engagement. And I think that is what we also need to see. How do we imagine conferences or spaces of learning or convenings that encourage those reflective conversations that are so dynamic and open and soft, allow us to be wrong, to be right, to be called in, to be called out, without it having to be a thing of, but Thuli from I Am said this, and, without letting it be a space that can get toxic, but just like a space of a soft landing for all. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was very perfect.
Thank you.
So as we all felt globally and in the country, nationally, we felt like a wound, deeply hurt by his passing, unnecessary and quite frankly, shocking tragedy. But we have to honor him, honor his memory. And what do you think is the best way to go about that, in addition to the soft landing approach to activism?
So, I mean, the loss of Imam Muhsin Hendricks is immeasurable. And I just want to share a call for solidarity that we worked on as the Queer Interfaith Collective. And it says, we call on those who were inspired by his work to stand together in solidarity, ensuring that his vision of a just and inclusive society continues to thrive. We urge communities, organizations, and individuals to continue the fight for inclusivity, justice, and equality in his name. Support his legacy by advocating for the inclusion of all those who are marginalized in faith communities, the fostering of interfaith dialogue, and standing up against hatred and violence. We encourage supporters to share their thoughts, tributes, and actions using the hashtag Justice for Muhsin, hashtag Compassion Centered Islam to keep his work alive and visible. And also, if anyone would like to support the family during this difficult time, donations can be made to the family as well. But what I also just want to strongly highlight is the call to say, we will not be silenced. We will not allow for those who want to hijack a whole religion and reflect hate or deflect hate in its name. We believe that we do not believe in a religion that promotes hate, that promotes takings of lives, that promotes the regulation of lives. Yet we believe in faiths that offer love, that offer compassion, that offer companionship and community and collective care. And coming from that space, I urge everyone to continue your work, but do not work alone. There are many of us who are here. We are here to support. We are here to assist. We're here with networks, and that our faith spaces are here to support you. I do know that a number of people within our own community have been hurt along the line in relation to religion. I know a few people who are even atheist, and for them it's a thing of, why do we need to invest or have this conversation about religion? But we also need to understand that religion has been weaponized in a number of countries on our continent, and it's been used against our own community. And the only way for us to stand up is claiming our existence. It's working in a space of saying, we're not going to allow you to bully us and silence us. We are here. We will create our community. We will exude queer joy. And we will not allow to be, diminished. And that is my call to action for everyone, is that stand in solidarity, reach out to networks, reach out to us for any support that you may need, whether it's pastoral assistance, whether it's you need linkages in community in relation to research. Once you've done your research, please share those findings, because they also help shape our own work. They also help us shape what we want in when we train theologians or seminarians or pastors in training, when we are able to say, this is what the data has been found. It becomes that body of research that is undisputable, but we cannot affect that change when we don't have access to that research. So please, once you've done your research or you've done whatever, come back, help us, train us, help us formulate more support to others, and help us continue changing the world through love, through compassion, and with our own faith.
Yeah, I agree. 100% we should do that. Like, the work doesn't stop here. I mean, I think that was the aim of the assassination, to stop the work. But I don't think it did. I think it's just to kind of like reinvigorate people to be angry, but also do it with love and with more strength and more a reason why to even keep fighting, because all of this unnecessary hate in the religious preachings it's so unfounded. So I believe that there needs to be more work, in religion, that it's more about love, and I don't know where the hatred coming from. So there's a lot of more work to be done, and I really agree with you. So yeah, thank you, Thuli, for those final words. They really resonate with me, and I think it should with a lot of people. But
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you for
thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah, thank
Thank you
you.
for
Thank
having
you for
me.
making time. I know you're the busiest person, one of the busiest people I know. So I thank you for making time to come on the podcast and discuss this very important life and legacy of Imam Muhsin Hendricks. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm always open for collaborative work.
Yeah.
Together we can go far. So please don't hesitate to drop me a message whenever you need me.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You have just listened to the Africa Rights Talk podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels, social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for listening.